We're joined now here on GCR by an NFL writer extraordinaire, someone who's going to try to help us make sense of everything that's gone on in the last 24 hours with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. From NBC Sports Football Morning in America, he is the great Peter King. Peter, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always great to catch up with you. Thank you for taking the time for us.
No problem, Glenn.
I'm going to ask in the dumbest way possible. How did we get here, Peter King?
Well, it's a very simple part of negotiations. One side thinks he should make X amount of dollars. The other side thinks that's excessive. Not necessarily the dollars, but the guarantees. And what I think has been really almost ignored by so many people who are talking about this and writing about this and talking about collusion in the NFL and all that. I think the one thing everybody is forgetting or severely minimizing is the fact that Lamar Jackson has missed significant time with injuries in the last 2 years. He has, in fact, missed 34% of the offensive snaps in the 21 and 22 seasons. Now, when that happens and the player makes his living in large part, he's averaged 10.4 rushes per game in his career, he's going to get hit a lot. And it's not his fault. That's what he's great at. But it's hard for me to sort of blame the Ravens for saying, okay, look, we realize you're our franchise guy, we love you and all that stuff, but if you're not playing, you're not doing us any good. And I'm sure that those who are thinking Lamar deserves guaranteed money is very simply because I think they say, well, look, he got hurt playing the way the Ravens want him to play.
Yep.
But to me, that's sort of a chicken and egg thing. You know, if you're on the field, you're playing and you're worth it. If you're not on the field and you're not playing, you're not worth it. And I just sort of look at this, and I think that's what it comes down to, simply. I think the Ravens would be anguished to pay him a guaranteed contract for 5 years, and I'm not even sure they would do it if he had a pristine bill of health. But the fact is, he doesn't have a pristine bill of health, and I think that's a huge part of why we are at this point right now.
So let me separate two different things. I understand certainly someone in your position can't just throw the word collusion around, right? Like, it's a heavy thing to say, and I'm not expecting it to be something that you would say. But for teams that are desperate, for teams that have nothing going for them, for teams that have been moribund, for a Washington, an Atlanta recently post Matt Ryan, a Carolina, like, is it odd to you that they would say, yeah, we're not going to even dip our toes into the waters?
Well, odd, but, I hear everybody saying collusion, and there well might be. But what you are then saying is you are accusing someone if you say, oh, yeah, there's definitely been collusion. You're accusing people of doing something that I think you don't have any proof of. And wouldn't it be logical if Arthur Blank, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, who just had a monstrously onerous quarterback contract with Matt Ryan, how would you feel if you were Arthur Blank and you were told that you were going to have to pay $240 million guaranteed to a guy who's missed 34% of the snaps the last 2 years? How does that solve Arthur Blank's problem? It might. And Lamar Jackson might play he might play the next 100 games. And you know what? I really hope he does. But the fact is, I think that it's a word that is going to be thrown around by so many people in the coming weeks and days. Collusion. It's being thrown around right now. Okay, prove it. That's what I say. And to it, I just think that, and again, people can think whatever they want, and they're going to think. We live in a media age where nobody really cares that much about the facts anymore. They form an opinion, and that's it. But in my opinion, where I come from in journalism, prove something before you say people are colluding. And, in my opinion, if I'm the teams that you mentioned, and again, look, I think this is a gamble that Washington, I'm not saying they should or they shouldn't, but if I were Washington, I'd take this gamble.
Yeah, I would as well.
I would.
Yeah.
I don't think it is a slam dunk the way many people think it should be.
Peter King is with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. Peter, all this being said, there is a certain percentage, and I would admittedly count myself among them here in Baltimore, that no matter how it ends, just want to see this end with Lamar Jackson as the Baltimore Ravens quarterback because there's nothing fun about going through a quarterback search. Do you think the events, the totality of it, not just the non-exclusive tag, but the at least reports of a number of teams being out on this, do you think that the chances are greater that somehow, some way, this ends with Lamar Jackson still being a Baltimore Raven?
I don't have a great feel. I wish I could say, yep, Lamar Jackson's never going to play for the Ravens again, or, oh, Lamar, it's all a lot of bluster and he will end up back with the Ravens. I don't know. And the reason why I don't know is because Lamar doesn't have an agent. No one has heard from Lamar.
Yep.
No one that I know anyway has heard from Lamar. And so therefore, I don't know. He might be so incredibly dug in that he says, the only way I'm playing football is for a totally guaranteed contract for $45 or $48 million a year. And that is what none of us know right now. I don't know it. I would be surprised if the Ravens knew it. So I wish I could sit here and look into a crystal ball. It's just too cloudy.
I understand. I completely understand everything you're saying. Do you think that there's a chance that some of these teams – one of the things that I said yesterday, Peter, and I've said this so far this morning is everything I know from my own reporting, which is not nearly at the level of yours, but everything I know from my own reporting is if a team isn't sure that they're going to end up getting someone – they certainly don't want to make it seem like they lost out on someone. So I take everyone who's denied so far with a bit of a grain of salt. Not saying that they're all lying as much as I don't know yet what that is. Do you think that it's possible that any of these teams that have so far told reporters? Yes.
I'll tell you one thing that when I saw that story yesterday, I kind of smiled because one of the general managers of the teams that was mentioned, I talked to for 45 minutes at the combine. A half hour, it was about Lamar. And so, what do you think?
Yeah.
Tell me what's been your experience with Lamar?
Yeah.
This is what the questions were to me.
Yeah.
And we're going back and forth on it. And I left and I said, well, this team is probably going to stand pat, but it's not out of the question that they could fly to Miami and meet with Lamar and try to investigate what really is possible. So, that's why I think you're absolutely right on this. I don't take any of that stuff right now as fact.
Yeah.
But I will just say, I forget all the teams that were mentioned, but, there are teams like for instance, the Miami Dolphins. They are absolutely rock solid right now on Tua. They're not going after Lamar. I know that, but there are some other teams that have been mentioned as they're not going after Lamar that I would just have a little raised eyebrow about.
Okay. I think that's a very fair way of saying it. Peter, do you make anything of a bigger fight here? Do you make anything of there being heels dug in, the NFLPA is involved, this is a fight not only about guaranteed contracts, but it's also maybe a fight about the future of the franchise tag, and that this thing could still have a ton of twists and turns involved. Like there could be a world where maybe Lamar chose to sit out for the year. So like, do you make anything
Yeah.
of this being more significant than just sort of a contract dispute at this point?
I mean, it might be, but I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't, I just don't know that. But I wouldn't eliminate that from being a possibility. The problem is every great player who gets tagged always screams that the franchise tag is unfair. And then every year when there's a new collective bargaining agreement, the players vote to approve, to ratify the collective bargaining agreement that includes the franchise tag. So I have zero sympathy for the players about this issue. I have zero sympathy for the NFLPA on this issue. If it's such a big deal, fight for it and say we are not playing football unless you get rid of the franchise tag.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Otherwise, I just think it's a bunch of baloney, honestly.
No, I get what you're saying. Look, they have been unwilling to give up game checks. Like that, this is then every time this comes around, they have when it gets to the end of the day, and you're gonna have to give up actual money. They've tended to cave every time so far.
And I don't think that's wrong. And look, everybody killed. I don't kill D. Smith. You want to know why? He's doing what the players want him to do. Now, he may not be doing what Aaron Rodgers and J.J. Watt want him to do, but he's doing what the guys who are at the lower end of the food chain want him to do. They're going to have short careers. They don't want to miss any games. So don't blame D. Smith. He's reading the room. He's doing what the majority of his players want. And if the majority of his players wanted to miss games and to fight for it, that he would do that. He's not dumb. He would do the will of the players. But as of right now, the will of the players is not that.
No, it's very clear. Not for the majority of them. I completely understand that. Peter King, what can I plug for you? Obviously, we're going to NBCSports.com.
I have nothing to plug. Just read my column every Monday. But Glenn, can I just finish and just say one thing about this?
Yes.
You talked about how, and everybody has talked about, oh my God, Ravens without Lamar, it'd be awful, it'd be terrible, and it would be. They developed him, they took him from the last pick of the first round, and everything went well. And yeah, there have been some difficult moments, and I think probably he hasn't really loved the offense of Greg Roman all the time, but it's overall been an extremely successful marriage. That is what would be set, not the rancor. The rancor will be forgotten, but what won't be forgotten is the fact that this guy came along at a great time for a city that is 63% black, that, reveres its athletes, as so many cities do. And he is a really good guy. You see him around town. He's a good guy. And that to me is what would be really sad if this didn't work out, because I think there would most likely be a lot of people in the city who would be down on the Ravens significantly if they don't give Lamar what he wants. But in my opinion, that's just not the way business is. It's got to be a two-way street. And as of right now, I think the Ravens feel like it hasn't been one. Maybe Lamar feels the exact same way.
I think you're correct in your assessment, and I think there is a lot of angst surrounding what happens here from a lot of people in this city right now, Peter King. But hey, look, this is probably where I should say the Ravens have made a lot of very good decisions, and there is a difference between the Ravens and the, Washington Commanders or the Detroit Lions, or insert team name here, that we know significantly. At Peter_King on Twitter is how you follow him. Truly appreciate you taking some time. I know it's a busy week. Thank you so much for doing it, my friend.
Hey, no problem, Glenn. Enjoyed it. Have a good day.